Hello and welcome. Let me start with a very short story. You create a table, build your code, everything looks perfect, you open the table browser, and the table is missing. You refresh. Still missing. You question your life choices. And then you realize, you forgot to sync. This video is about making sure that never happens again. Today, we'll clearly understand build and sync, and all the different ways to do it. Let's start with build. Build is the process where Visual Studio compiles your metadata and code. It checks syntax, references, and dependencies. If build fails, nothing else matters. Now, there are multiple ways to build, and each one has its place. First, build at project level. If you are working inside a specific project, you can right-click on that project and click Build. This builds only that project. It's useful when you're making small, focused changes and want quick feedback. Think of it as checking just the room you cleaned, not the whole house. Next is build at solution level. This is what most developers use daily. When your solution contains multiple projects, you can right-click on the solution and click Build. This builds all projects inside that solution. It's balanced, not too small, not too big. This is usually the safest and most practical option during development. Now let's talk about global build. Global build compiles everything for the selected model. Standard code, custom code, everything related to that model. This is heavier and takes more time. Global build is commonly used when you are working in a team. For example, when other developers push changes, you pull the latest code. At that point, doing a global build ensures your environment is fully aligned. It's basically the system saying, let's make sure everyone is on the same page. After build comes database sync. Sync is what creates or updates database objects based on metadata. Without sync, tables do not exist in the database. Fields don't exist. Relations don't exist. Indexes don't exist. To sync, you have two options. The first option is from the menu. Go to the Dynamics 365 menu and click Synchronize Database. This syncs all pending changes. The second option is sync from project level. You can right-click on a project and select Synchronize Database. This is useful when you want to sync only the changes related to that project. Both do the same job, they just differ in scope. Now, an important rule. You do not sync after every change. You sync only when metadata changes. For example, new table, new field, changed relation, changed index. You do not need to sync for class logic, form behavior, business calculations. Sync takes time and briefly locks the database. That's why we use it carefully. And one very important warning. In production environments, you never casually run sync. In production, sync happens through deployments. Running it manually is a great way to get a meeting scheduled very quickly. Now let's lock in the correct order. Always build first. Then sync. Never sync without a successful build. So to summarize, you can build at project level for quick checks. You can build at solution level for regular development. You use global build when working in a team or after pulling changes. You can sync from the menu or directly from a project. And build plus sync is what makes your changes real. Without it, your code exists only in spirit. Before we wrap up, let me share a few additional tips that can make your daily development life much easier. The first tip is about building quickly. If you want a faster way to build, you don't always have to go to Solution Explorer. You can right-click on the Visual Studio toolbar, customize it, and add build options. Once enabled, you'll see two very handy buttons. One to build the current project, and one to build the entire solution. For me, this is the easiest way. No right-click hunting, no menus, just one click, and build starts. Simple, fast, and very satisfying. Now let's talk about global build options. When you run a global build, you'll see several options. Not all of them are needed all the time, so it's important to understand what each one does. First, build precompiled forms. This rebuilds system forms that are already compiled. In most cases, you don't need this unless you're troubleshooting UI-related issues. Next, build reports. This builds SSRS reports. You only need this if you've changed or added reports. Otherwise, feel free to skip it. Then we have run best practice checks. This checks your code against Microsoft's recommended standards. Very useful, but also very strict. It's common to run this before code reviews or releases, not after every small change. We'll cover Microsoft best practices in detail in a separate series. Next is synchronize database. This runs database sync as part of the build. This should be used carefully and only when metadata changes require it. Now build cross-reference data. This generates information about where objects are used across the system. It helps with impact analysis and dependency tracking. Then there is build only cross-reference data. This does exactly the same thing, but without running a full build. Useful when you only want updated references. Next, run Socratex checks. These are internal validation checks used by Microsoft. In most development scenarios, you don't need to enable this. Then we have run application checker rules. This runs app checker, which validates code quality and patterns. Very useful before deployments. Again, we'll cover app checker rules in a separate series. Next option is log app checker diagnostics as errors. When enabled, warnings are treated as errors. Great for enforcing discipline, slightly stressful before deadlines. Then there is deploy to connected online environment. This deploys changes to a connected environment. This is usually used in cloud and build pipeline scenarios. And finally, build labels. This builds label files so text changes reflect correctly in the application. If labels don't update, this is usually the checkbox you forgot. So the key takeaway here is this. You don't need to enable everything every time. Understand what changed, and choose the build options accordingly. That saves time, avoids unnecessary errors, and keeps your environment stable. And don't worry, we'll cover Microsoft standard best practices, app checker, and quality rules in a separate series, step by step. Thanks for watching.